Ancient Greece by Tristan J. and Savannah Unsworth. Events at ancient Olympus included combat events, which were wrestling, boxing, and pancration, pentathlon, which included javelin, long jump, and discus, and equestrian, which included chariot racing and horse racing. Combat events. Wrestling, there were two forms, upright wrestling and ground wrestling. Upright wrestling became an Olympic event in 708 BC. To win in upright wrestling, one had to make his opponent fall 3 times into a sandpit. Pancration, which means all fours, is a combination of wrestling and boxing. It was a dangerous sport in which everything was permitted except biting, gouging, stabbing with your finger in your opponent's eye, nose, or mouth, and attacking the genitals. Boxing. Boxers wrapped straps around their hands to strengthen their wrists and steady their fingers. The straps were soft, but boxers started using hard leather straps, often causing disfigurement of their opponent's face. Pentathlon. Long jump. Athletes used stone or lead weights called halters to increase the distance of a jump. They held onto the weights until the end. Discus. Athletes would use stone to throw. They would throw that piece of stone as far as they could and measure where it lands. Javelin. Athletes use a light spear designed to be thrown. After they throw it, they would measure where it landed to see how far they threw it. Equestrian events. Chariot and horse racing. Chariot races. Chariot racing was one of the most popular sports in ancient Greece. Each chariot was pulled by 4 horses. Horse races. In horse racing, there were many different events. 4-horse chariot, 2-horse chariot, and horse with rider. Punishments and rewards for all events. Punishment. If you were caught cheating during an event, you would have to pay fines, and with that money, statues of Zeus were built, known as names. Each of these statues were placed along the passageway that led to the stadium with the number of the cheater inscribed on its face. Plus, if you cheated, you were never allowed to participate in the events again. The rewards, or the winners of the events, were given a crown of wild olive leaves. Fun fact. The rings of blue, black, yellow, red, and green, which make up one of the most recognized symbols in the world, traditionally represent the 5 different areas of the world involved in the Olympics. North America and South America are considered one area, along with Africa, Australia, Asia, and Europe. Married women were not allowed to participate in or watch the ancient Olympic Games. However, unmarried women could attend the competition. The official award ceremony would take place on the last day of the Games, at the Temple of Zeus. In a loud voice, the herald would announce the name of the Olympic winner, his father's name, and his homeland. Then they placed the sacred olive tree crown on the winner's head.
The Greeks had long excelled at creating incredible statuary. At Olympia, the holy sanctuary was dominated by the world's largest ivory statue to the god Zeus, the god of all gods. But long before this statue was made, another brand of superhero was also making Olympia famous, the Olympic champion. And Olympia would become the most enduring sports arena, not just across the Greek Empire, but for centuries afterwards across the world. Olympia was the only place in the Greek world where both gods and men were worshipped. In July every 4th year, from all corners of the Greek world, thousands made their way to Olympia to compete in and to watch the greatest spectacle on earth. The Olympic Games began as early as the 8th century BC with a 200-yard sprint. Held to mark a truce between 2 warring cities, it launched over 1,000 years of games. As the games grew in importance, the sanctuary of Zeus was transformed into the world's first sporting city, with training centers, baths, guest houses, and a stadium which could hold 40,000 spectators. Beneath this arch would run the finest athletes from across the Greek world. The games would decide on just one victor, whose reward was honor in the name of the god Zeus. The earliest race was 200 meters long. Later came the 400, then the 5,000 meters. Then there was the pentathlon, running, jumping, wrestling, discus, and javelin.
So many of the events of Olympia were versions of war. Men throwing spears, men throwing stones, men racing in hoplite armor, heavy military equipment.
Competitors were gradually reduced to just the final pair, who would fight it out in wrestling and boxing combat. But only the elite could afford to take part.
Go to Olympia meant you had to train for 10 months, and then train for 1 month at Olympia itself. It wasn't for ordinary Greeks, that was for the very wealthy.
Olympia soon grew into a vast sports complex, its buildings designed specifically for each athletic discipline. As Olympia soared in importance, shrines and temples were built to glorify and honor Zeus. But at Olympia, champions were also honored, with the first gymnasium, and next door, a school for wrestlers and boxers. But there were other, more unusual events housed in specially designed buildings. A contest for trumpeters and heralds was held at one end of an echo colony, an elongated building which could echo each note 7 times. There was the hippodrome, where chariot and horse racing events took place. Each race began with the horses being released from an elaborate starting mechanism called an aphesis to ensure total fairness. The horses raced out into the hippodrome, nearly 800 meters long. An average lap was nearly a third of a mile.
Greek who won the Olympic Games didn't get a medal, a precious medal. What he got was a ribbon around his head, palm branch to wave around the stadium, and an olive wreath to take away. His real reward started when he got home. He was allowed his pick of the spectacular heiresses in town. He get a meal, a good meal at public expense for the rest of his life. Over it all, fame would be smiled at, pointed at for the rest of his life.
The winners were recorded on statues around Olympia. Their names were even used in the Greek calendar.
They named their years after Olympic winners. For the Greeks, the event was dated the year in which such and such won.
The games continued for 1,200 years, until the Christian emperor Theodosius, in 394 AD, abolished them as a pagan event. Now the Olympic flame has been rekindled, and every 4 years, a torch is carried from Olympia to the modern site of the greatest show on earth.